Yeah, good morning. I'd like to welcome us to this class. We have our third special speaker, third guest speaker for the semester, Dr. Shina Alimi. Dr. Alimi is, associate professor, I used to be senior lecturer. Which one now?
Well, I'm a senior lecturer very soon by the grace of God.
Okay.
We joined the rank of associate professor.
Okay, so I'm sure that by the time they announce his associate professorship, effectively will have been a professor, associate professor by today anyway. So, but it's good to have Shina around. It's one of the few shining lights you have left around in a space cluttered by too many mediocres. It's indeed a delightsome thing to have somebody like him doing good scholarship and being available to show example. He finished from the department, so it's not as if he finished from the skies and joined us. He finished from the department, which means that the foundation is there if only you are ready to make the good use of the opportunities available and develop yourself, develop your skills, and rise above the tendency to mediocrity, which is so prevalent in our societies. Is speaking to us on writing and presentation skills. And like I mentioned yesterday, it's not enough to do good research. You need to be able to write it up. You need to be able to present it in a way that will project the essence of what you have done, will project the essence of your scholarship. Research is 70%, writing and presentation is another 30%. Many good research never gets published in outstanding journals because the way they are presented do not project quality. There are instances when you wonder whether the person who wrote the research is the person who presented it, who conducted research. So what we are doing today is trying to own up your skills, sharpen your skills, and give you the tips on how to present in such a way as to get the maximum effect. I had a colleague, a classmate during my MA class. At the time, by the time she finished writing her thesis, you are wondering, what kind of rubbish is this? When she did her oral exam, the SN exam, everybody was wowed. That if you had written just 10% of what you said, we wouldn't be asking any question in this oral exam. So it's not enough to be able to say it. You also have to be able to write it down. Many people have the ability to say it, but they cannot write it down. And the first thing the examiner will see is what you have written, not what you are saying in your defense. And when you are presenting an article for an international journal or you are writing a proposal for a grant, nobody will see you to come and talk. It's what you have written down that people will see. So let me stop talking and allow Dr. Alimi to take us through this important topic, writing and presentations. And I'd like to thank you, Shina, because you already sent a material to the platform a couple of days ago. Is it weeks now on this matter? So the floor is yours, Dr. Alimi. You have the right to share your screen. So,
all right. Good morning, sir. It is a great honor to be part of this this class, and I would also like to appreciate our students who, by the grace of God, will also, be our colleagues, maybe from other university or, in our university here. So, and I want to also, I want to congratulate them because it's a great honor that this our professor, Professor Akenyade, is teaching you today. It's a great honor because if I remember, the last time I was in prof's class was 2006 when I was a part 4 student in Department of History, and we were put through a lot of training, rigor that I can say culminating what I can say touch my scholarship to today. So I'm trying to share my screen. I don't know whether it is visible to everyone now. Is the screen
Yeah,
visible to everyone now?
yeah, we can see it. It seems as if there is some obstruction somewhere. But maybe if you do a slideshow, uh,
Some of us,
well,
okay, like we can see now.
yeah.
So you can see it
But
now.
it's a little blurry.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
you can do slideshow and let's see if it will clear the.
Okay. Oh, it is probably the angle where I sit might affect the screen too. Let me shift a bit. Okay. Is it visible
Yeah, we
now?
can see the screen. Just enhance it by doing slideshow so that the slides will come out bigger. Yeah, you can start.
All right, sir.
Yeah.
Okay. Today's presentation will focus on writing and presentation of historical research. So my name is Shina Alimi. Like Prof said, I'm a product of Department of History of Obafemi Awolowo University. And by the grace of God, I've had the opportunity of spending about uh, 13 years in this business. And which means that at least, I've been able to, get some experience. So the agenda for this presentation are listed here. So the first is to look at effective strategies of writing history. Then we'll move on to look at structure of a good history essay. Thereafter, we'll look at the do's and don'ts of writing history. So I'll start by saying that history writing, we should look at history writing as a form of craft that involves scientific investigation. Historians are just like they are scientists by training. At the same time, they are artists. Scientists in the sense that the major aspect of their work is to investigate. They want to know what really happened in the past, significant events in the past. They want to know what happened. And by the virtue of that, they become the witness of the events of the past. So that's the first aspect of their role. The second is to present their findings. How do you present your finding? You write. You write. Historians are not known for talking. They are known by their writing skill. So this aspect of writing is regarded as art, just like an artist who weave maybe clothes, weave basket, and it requires a lot of creativity. Or somebody who drums, it requires creativity. That's why I said history writing is a craft that involves scientific investigation and artful or creative weaving of significant past events. I don't want to use the word story because the word story might not be backed by fact, but because historians have don't consider a lot of research or investigation, then their story moves on to become what we call history. So when we talk about the way historians present their findings, there are many ways they could present. I just list 4 here to us. Journal article, you can present your, the products of your investigation. You can present it through journal article. It could be a report submitted maybe to a committee or to a larger body or to an organization. It could be a book, and your findings or results might be, presented as a thesis because you want to acquire a degree. Okay, so these are just few of the ways in which historians, communicate their findings, their investigations. These are just few ways in which they do. But this, to get these their findings presented to the award, they need to acquire the skills. They need to acquire the skills. So we want to look at the effective strategies of writing history. So history writing begins with your choice of theme or subject. You don't just, start writing. You need to go through certain process. What is your choice of, a topic or theme that you want to explore? And what are there are certain factors that will actually, push you to pick certain topics or subjects. So you ask yourself, which theme do you want to actually work on? That history is just like an ocean. And ocean, you rarely see its end. So it is very big and sprawling. So it depends on which aspect of the ocean you want to explore. So do you want to look at the political aspect of history? Do you want to look at economy? Or do you want to look at the society from the lens of religion? Is it culture? Is it gender, sexuality, security, or environmental factor? Name it. Any angle you want to look at history, you must, understand that you cannot write history of everything. There must be, a particular area that, or the subject that I want to look at. So the second thing you need to consider is that you are not the first person, or rather, you are not the only person who is thinking about that area. Possibly there might be some people who have already worked in the area. So you need to see what others have done. So before you can pick a topic, the area you are interested in, let's say you are interested in security, which aspect of security? If you are talking about security, you can be talking about Nigerian army. You can be talking about Nigerian police. If you are interested in Nigerian police, it means that you have to go and look at what people have written on Nigerian police force. Okay, so you must look at what others have done. So you must do something like a kind of quick literature review that will first equip you with basic knowledge of the area that you are interested in. For instance, I'm doing a work currently, which is not actually my core area. I'm looking at how we can understand the way women are sexualized and their body commodify in Yoruba land. So I need to go and study, literature on gender, literature on women, then the perspective in which I intend to look at it in is from, traditional Yoruba oral poetry. So when I saw that there are a lot of work on that, I start looking at alternative way. Okay, if people have done work on that, what else can be my own contribution? So I need to move the time, my own school, a little bit, closer to neo-traditional, poetry, looking at musical genre that come out of Yoruba oral poetry. So that, I was able to get to pick focus my topic along that line because I've read literature and I was able to identify what have been written as well as the gaps that are left to be explored. So you need to see what have been written by others. So, and how do you do this? You review literature, then you check the bibliography. Some people, when they read books or journal, it is only the content that they read. If you go and look at the references of bibliography, you see plenty of works that are existing about that subject. And that will also help you to know whether, what you are doing, you are rehearsing what others have done, or, your idea is original. So the second way of forming your own topic is to interact with librarians. Interact with librarians. Librarians, they have, enough information about books. They are in charge of, books within your institution. You can ask them about, certain books, and from there you get information about topics. Similarly, archivists could also be could be useful to you when you are forming your subject. Then you consult your professors. Try to consult your professors. They have, vast experience. They understand. They have seen, and they have, conducted a lot of research. They know colleagues who are working on certain areas. So if you consult them, they are going to give you useful advice that will guide you in your research. Then the easiest way to do this is to Google search. You Google search. So when you search Google, you see, so it will bring so many things, useful and useless information. It is not left for you to see, to obtain what is useful out of it. So then I said, note, history that matters is stimulated by the interest in the life or present. So whatever topic you are going to pick should not be, the topic that, uh, uh, people will hardly show interest or does not bear any relevance to the present. Okay, so it is always important to look at, what we do now is to see the relevance of our research on contemporary, people, okay, contemporary society. So the way to get started is to quit talking and have to, start by action. So what do you do? So your choice of topic or subject, you must consider the following. Your topic must be very interesting. And what do I mean by interesting? You look at it from two angles. First, it must be interesting to you. If you pick a topic that you are not interested in, or somebody impose a topic on you, you are likely not to finish it, or you want to write an article to be published in a journal, and you pick a topic that you are not interested in, forget about it. Apart from the fact that it wastes your time, you may not end up, coming out with, useful information. So your topic must be first and foremost interested to you. Then it must be interesting. It must be interesting to others in the sense that the way you are going to, look at it must be interesting to the point that people who are not in your field will be eager to listen to whatever you are trying to to say. So interest, your personal interest as well as interest of others is very important. Then what is your personal experience about the subject? Sometimes, our interests, come out of our experience. Somebody whose parents are police officers, like, may be interested in writing about, history of Nigerian police force or looking at security, or somebody who had experience of police brutality may, as a result of that, be keen to write about that. Or somebody who was trying to get admission to study medicine now accidentally find him or herself in history, but still have interest in health sector, may just show interest that, oh, why not? Let me do research on. So your personal experience matter. It matters. But you need to also be very careful. What we mean by personal experience and personal interest should not bias your choice of topic. Because you come from a royal family where, your maybe your family has been denied of ascending the throne, doesn't mean that you should use the opportunity to, choose the topic, as a research topic. So don't allow your interest, personal interest and personal experience to bias your mind about, your choice of topic. Then you ask the question whether the topic is feasible and researchable. There are some topics that are not researchable, that are not feasible. If you pick such topic, it will affect your final delivery. It will elongate, the time you are supposed to carry out the research. In fact, you may end up, choosing another topic. You ask yourself, is it researchable? And what are researchable topic? And what are, non-researchable topic? You want to start researching history of Ogun, for instance. Ogun, Ogun was not a human being, or whatever, whether spirit. So information about Ogun itself is very obscure. But if you say that I want to understand the history of, the Alagbede in Ile-Ife, the Smiths in Ile-Ife, that one is reasonable. Of course, we'll be talking about Ogun, but from another dimension. So you can see what is, researchable and what is not researchable. Okay, so then you need to also consider contemporary concern about the subject. Contemporary concern about the subject. What do I mean by that? What I mean by that is that somebody who wants to write history of the Smiths in Ile-Ife, for instance, how do we, as historians, make that, attractive or useful for the society, or our findings, the part of, contribution to societal development or whatever. So if you look at it from, technological perspective, not just two people or a group of people just, who are making iron. If you are looking at it as, history of the Yoruba technology, you are telling us about, concern about, African technology and so. But if you are just looking at it about, you are looking at it from the perspective of a group of people are just making iron to cut grass. No, you are not concerned about our own, about the society, about the subject itself. So the contemporary concern about the subject is very important. Take, for instance, people are moving to discuss environmental issues. Historians are joining, various scientists in analyzing this. And, the way climate change, is happening now has actually, caused that what we call, a research agenda in that area. If historians want to look at it, historians can look at history of environmental crisis and co, and how human beings, contributed to that, or how the environment itself affected human beings. Okay, so contemporary concern is always very, important when you are picking or choosing your topic. Then you must also think about relevant sources before you select your topic. What are the sources that are like somebody who wants to work on symmetry in Ile-Ife, for instance, with particular focus on iron symmetry in Ile-Ife, should understand that he or she will have to collect some data that are raw, not necessarily going to be found in the archive, but rather oral sources. It means that the person is going to do a lot of interview. You must understand, the relevant sources to your choice of topic. Again, you must also ask yourself whether you will have access to those sources. If you are not going to have access to it, then forget about it. Somebody who wants to do research about Nigerian US relation, history of Nigerian US relation in the, let's say, in the 70s, must be ready to go to obtain documents beyond Nigerian shore, and must be ready to carry out research beyond Nigerian shore. But when you don't have the resources and you don't have access to that, if you pick that kind of topic, you are going to end up messing it up. So you must consider the relevance of your sources as well as the accessibility to those sources. Then what has been discussed in the literature also matter. Okay, what have others discussed in the literature? This will keep you when you are searching for sources. In fact, by the time you look at the references, the bibliography, you see it will direct you to some sources that they have used in the past, and it will help you to locate, where those sources are archived. Then, what are the gaps? You must understand the gaps you want to fill. It is not appropriate to repeat what others have done, but you can do that provided that you have fresh data or evidence that are far beyond whatever they have used in the past. So you must understand the gap. Then the gap you want to fill must be very clear to you before you pick your topic. Then it is also very important to write a proposal. It is very important to write a proposal. Proposal will help you outline exactly what you want to do. Will help you identify the key components of your research. So what are the elements of a good research proposal? The first is to start with why your topic is crucial. Why do you think the topic you pick is crucial? Somebody wants to work on environmental crisis in Yoruba land, for instance, may say that, well, climate change is actually affecting the humanities now. Therefore, he or she is interested in carrying out research about the effect of deforestation and so on. So you have to demonstrate that you know the state of knowledge on the subject. By reviewing literature, you will understand what has been written and what has not been written and what are the gaps. So demonstrate your knowledge of literature. These are the key components of your proposal. So you have to show that your research is very key, and that is significance of your research. Then you have to demonstrate that you know what others have done, and that is you reviewing literature. Then you have to outline your theoretical and methodological issues. What theories, what methods do you want to use, and what sources? So you have to outline them, okay? Then you need to analyze your audience. Every writing has its own peculiar audience. You need to ask yourself, who is the audience of your history or of your writing? Who are your, your readers? It is very, very important. For instance, the audience of thesis is different from the audience of journal. The audience of thesis is your supervisor, the internal assessors, as well as the external assessors. And you know, the purpose of your thesis is to be awarded a degree. That is the key audience of your thesis. But journal article, you are addressing community of scholars. That one is a larger community. Then book has a larger reach than journal. Okay, so you need to understand your audience. By understanding your audience, you will know the kind of language you should use. You will know, the way you are going to communicate. Okay, so you must understand your audience. And how do you do this? You do what we call audience analysis. You must understand your audience. So the next thing is to look for which approach. From which approach do you want to write your essay? We have different approaches. We have narrative approach, we have descriptive approach, we have analytical approach. Narrative approach, here it gives details of historical events. It is actually interested in giving the details of historical events. Descriptive would give us, the readers the ability to imagine different, aspects of the story that you are trying to tell us. While analytical, try to, be more argumentative, trying to, interpret the data. It's more concerned about, interpretation of key issues backed up with data. Then how do you structure your essay? We have two basic, forms of structure, systems. We have chronological structure. Do you want to, structure your work chronologically? And by chronological, it means that you are going to look at the events, follow the sequence of the way the event happened. So sequentially, okay? It could be from, the most recent events or from the oldest event. So you look at the sequence of, you arrange the event, sequentially. Then thematic structure. Do you want to look at key issues? And that is what we mean by thematic. Do you want to, organize your chapters or, your essay based on certain key issues or themes that happen within, the subject you are exploring? So we have chronological, we have thematic. Chronological is very interesting if you can you can get access to the chain of events, stories of chain of events as it happened. Okay, but sometimes it becomes boring. It becomes boring. Then again, when you have issues, let's say you are discussing an aspect of it, you are discussing labor agitation in 1945. So it means that you are going to discuss that labor agitation, in 1945. Then when you get to 1949 and we have another labor agitation, it means that you will also start talking about labor agitation. But if it is thematic, you can pick labor agitation under a colonial rule as a particular subheading or a chapter or a theme, and with that you can discuss everything about labor agitation. Then maybe you want to discuss youth struggles. Okay, you categorize every youth struggles within the period you are exploring, under. So that is thematic. Then you can also mix the two. You can mix the two. You just you move from chronology to thematic structure. So let us look at this sample. Look at this thematic approach. This is a book on Fela Anikulapo Kuti, Afrobeat. I hope everybody can see this.
Yeah, we can see.
Yes, we can.
So look at the table of contents. The table of content here, you see that it is not talking directly about from the birth of Fela to the death of Fela. You can see that the first is Fela Anikulapo Kuti and Fela Studies. Okay, so the authors, arrange their subject thematically. Okay, you can see how, look at that item number 5, the woman question, Fela and his women. That is that. So that is it. So instead of saying Fela maybe was born in 1942, Fela 1943 to 1953, discussing everything Fela did between that period. Instead of doing that, the authors, have adopted thematic system. Then look at this chronological approach. This chapter from, content, table of content from Groundwork of Nigerian History. Look at it, you can see Nigeria before 1800, then different region or kingdom within Nigeria, they discuss under this chronological. Then you see Nigeria in the 19th century, okay? So it is possible to achieve, your aim, either through chronological or through thematic, or you may decide to mix. This is an example of mixed approach. History in the making, the history of the people of the United States of America to 1877. Look at chapter number 1 there, United States history before Columbus. But when you look at the subheadings there, you see different themes there. The Paleo-India era through the agricultural revolution, the pre-contact era. Yes, the author tries to mix. Then look at that chapter 2, the global context, Asia, Europe, and Africa in the early modern era. Okay. Item number 2.2, Europe in the age of discovery, Portugal and Spain. So here the author is talking about discovery as a major theme, yet he is still considering the period when this thing happened. Okay, so what he has done is to mark the period with the theme, the era, that is the era of discovery. So it is possible for you as an author to achieve your goal by mixing the two structure. Then historical plots, like essay writers, like novelists, historians also, they have their own plots. So, and what is your plot talking about? It is talking about the shape of your story. How do you shape your story? How do you build your story? Is it in a pyramid form? You remember pyramid? Oh, I'm sorry, I should have put the picture of pyramid here. You remember Egyptian pyramid? Okay, you see how the base is very large and it becomes narrow as it goes up, and at the peak it is very sharp. Okay, inverted pyramid, that is when you turn the pyramid down. So what do we mean by pyramid system? It is when you start your story, the background, and you end your story at the climax, at the peak. Okay, so that is pyramid. But inverted pyramid, when you start your story from the peak and you now end it up at the root, the background of the event. Okay, that is inverted pyramid. But in doing this, you need to adopt whichever suits the story you are writing, which suits the story you are writing best. Okay, do you keep your readers in suspense? It is also very important to keep your reader in suspense. When you read some historical work, it becomes so boring that you read it over and over. In fact, some students have to read historical work over and over because they do not have choice. But you should make your writing should make your reader to have choice. And what choice? To read your work. The choice is to read your work. And how do you do that? Make your story interesting. And how do you make your story interesting? You must have plot. You must organize your story very well. Do you move from the beginning to the end, or you start from the end to the beginning. Then what is the climax? Climax is the stage of Christ, the peak of the story. You must identify, your climax, and your climax must be very clear to you. The suspense will drag your reader to read more and more and flip to the next page until they reach, they want to know more. And what they want, where they want to reach is the climax. Exactly what happened next. Your ability to keep your readers, stick or stuck to, to your research or to your paper is very, very important. Okay. Then style. To achieve, great plot, you need to have very good style. Style is the way your essay looks. When I pick your essay, the way it looks, then the way it sounds when I read it, or does it make any sense to the reader? Okay, this, will be achieved through your style. And what kind of style do you actually adopt? Then your voice too, the kind of vocabulary, the grammar, the figure of speech, the flow, and the reading. Okay, I remember when we were in undergraduate, one of our professors, retired now, whenever you submitted an essay to him, from the first paragraph, he would determine whether you will continue reading it or not. Sometimes he will, from the second sentence, he will write, "I've stopped reading." Or sometimes he will just write, "End of useless introduction." You see, your work from the word go must be very interesting. So you must have your own style. How do we do this? You develop it through, consistent writing. You develop it. You can also, learn style from, senior writers. But you cannot achieve that without reading. Reading is the key. You cannot continue to read works that are published in predatory journals or pedestrian journals and expect to reach high level of style. You see, sometimes when we look at the list of references of a particular work, you can just, from there you can just look at the author himself. Okay, so style will, give your work the shape and the way people will look at it, the way it will sound to them, and the way it will make sense to them. When you are reading, sometimes it will appear as if you are part of that historical development. Some authors have achieved that. Okay. Then the choice of word. Some authors, or historians, theirs is to use big vocabulary. That is why I said your audience is very important as well. Whatever you can achieve with, simple language should not be, constructed with big vocabulary. Then the kind of figure of speech that will force your reader to search Google is unnecessary. Then there must be flow. So you achieve all this through your style. Then your voice. Your voice is the way you sound and the way you are perceived by the readers through your writing. It helps historians to have dialogue with the audience. When people are reading your work, you see, sometimes when I read some work, I became happy. I became happy with the way the authors, constructed the essay, the way they weave as if, one is weaving mats or weaving clothes. Okay. Then your voice could be witty, it could be clean, it could be strong, it could be dull, it could be pompous, it could be bland. Which voice are you? Okay, let me give you an instance. If you have read the work of Professor E. Ayandele very well, I'll cite one instance. The deluded hybrid, something like that, on Yoruba elite in the early colonial period. you see the way the man was very, very, was amusing, yet he was communicating. The way he was, constructing the image of the Yoruba anglicized elite of that period was so amusing, yet the information and the message was very clear. Okay, some writers, their own style of voice is so bland, so bland. In fact, you may not even hear their voice in the story. So your voice is also very important. So you need to pay attention to all these things when you are writing. Then we move on to structure of a historical paper. A sensible essay begins with a useful and interesting introduction and ends with a useful and interesting conclusion. So it means that when you want to write anything, whether a book, whether a journal article, a thesis, a report, there must be structure. And what is the structure? The structure is, the first is the introduction. And a dull introduction is bad. A poorly constructed introduction is poison. So from the word go, when you pick a book, a project, an essay, a journal article, when you read the introduction, you are either encouraged or you are discouraged from moving on. So how do you achieve attracting readers to your essay? How can they be glued or stuck with your essay? So the first way to achieve this is to employ or deploy what we call the hook strategy. The hook strategy. And how do you do that? It will help you grab the attention of the readers. So you can start by using quotation. You can use quotation. So moving quotation. I intend to incorporate some examples, but the time did not permit me. I wanted to insert it for illustration. So you look for relevant quotation. It could be from the body of your primary sources that will usher the readers into your work. You start with relevant. I use the word relevant or moving. It must be relevant and it must be moving. Okay. What do we mean by moving? It must, it must touch them. It must touch the reader to the point that the reader wants to know more. Then colorful story. You can start with colorful story, but that colorful story must be relevant. I selected one article of Prof that I'll still share it with you via that WhatsApp group. Okay. He started with the story and he started building his analysis from that story. Okay. So we have instances like that. You look for colorful story, but it must be relevant story relevant directly to what you are discussing. Then relevant questions. You can start your introduction with questions. I do that a lot. Using relevant questions to open up your essay. Then you can start with your argument, your thesis statements. You can use that to attract the attention of the readers. That is how the hook system works. Then your introduction must also contain a statement of research problem or gap. It must tell us the gap, the problem, or the why. What happened? Why do you show interest in doing that research or in writing that piece? Okay, it must contain something like a research problem or the gap. Then an overview of your argument. You must be able to summarize your argument within one sentence. Your argument must be summarized as a sentence. And if you have 2 or 3 arguments, each argument must be a sentence. Then the goal and objectives. What do you intend to achieve with that? Your article must be part of your introduction. Then you can also include a review of literature or historiography, what others have said. You can say, oh, others have said this, they've said that, but they have not said certain things. And this is the reason why I want to write this piece. And that is what they did not say is what I investigated and I want to say. So body of the essay. So a body of a history essay is the analysis, narration, or description of a historical event organized in paragraphs, renders in details. A body of a history essay is the analysis, narration, or description of a historical event organized in paragraphs, renders in details. Let's say you are writing a thesis. Obviously, your thesis will contain minimum of 5 chapters, maximum of 6. And each chapter must have an introduction. Each chapter will have a body, and each chapter will have a conclusion. So the body of your essay, of a chapter of your thesis, must contain what I want to list now. It can even be your journal article. When you are writing your article, apart from the abstract, which, well, deliberately I didn't mention that, but I may still, maybe I should mention that. Abstract is just a summary of everything you are trying to do. But because I'm intending to focus on your thesis, that's why. So abstract is a summary of everything you have said in that your essay. But in your body of essay, you are going to have subtopics. The theme you are exploring, you will divide it into different segments, okay? And each segment will be under a subheading. So we have subheadings. Your subheading will handle each sub-theme of your subject. Then each subheading, we have a number of paragraphs. So you are going to have paragraphs. So under your subheading, you arrange your essay as a paragraph. It is very wrong to write a paragraph running to like 2-3 pages. No, a paragraph usually maximum is around half a page or a little bit longer. But when a paragraph is more than a page, it is nonsense. It will be so unwieldy and it will become boring and it may discourage the reader. So paragraphs with major points. So each paragraph carries a major point. So when you write a paragraph, your paragraph carries a major point. I'll still analyze the meaning of paragraph to you as we move on. Then each paragraph must contain a thesis statement. You want to make a particular point in a paragraph, that paragraph must have a central statement of the point you are trying to make. Okay? So under your body of essay, you are going to have, you can narrate your story, you can describe, you can analyze or interpret data. It depends on the approach of your essay. Then after your essay, you cite or you make reference. So if it is your thesis, as you are writing along the way, you make your citation as footnote. So footnoting, validate your claims in the body of the essay. So your essay consists of subheadings, then paragraphs, and each paragraph carries major points. And part of your body of essay, you must have thesis statements, narration, then story around that your thesis statement, why you make that claim. So you now tell us the story. Then you validate your claim by citing reference. Then the last stage of the structure of an essay is the conclusion. Here you summarize your essay. When you want to do that, it is important for you to restate your thesis. It is also important to review key evidence that you mentioned. So this will help you reinforce the thesis. Then it will help you drive home the significance of the paper. So your conclusion is very vital, because sometimes some people will read the introduction and go to the conclusion. Okay, so your conclusion will contain thesis. You restate the thesis as you stated it in your introduction. Then you review key evidence. This will help reinforce the thesis. Then you drive home the significance of the paper. So then we move on to validate your claims. And how do you do that? References. So you list all the sources and evidence used. Okay, what are the sources? You made use of primary materials, archival documents, oral sources, you list them. Secondary data, the use of journal articles, books, you list them. Then other sources, ancillary or supporting sources, you list them. This will validate your argument and your claims. Now on references for thesis, each department has its own reference style. In Department of History, we make use of Chicago manual style. That is what we make use in Department of History. If you are writing, you want to publish in a journal. Each journal you want to publish has its own peculiar reference style. You need to observe this before they can accept your paper. So you follow the reference style of the journal you want to publish in, or the book publisher that give you contract for your book. So what are the elements of a good body of an essay? So the first thing is a thesis, statement of thesis. It is the central argument of a paper. It is the central argument of your paper. So you must have it. Usually, sometimes when I'm in a seminar and student presents beautifully and cool, but when you thoroughly look at some presentation, you realize that it is totally empty in spite of eloquence of the speaker. And what is lacking? The thesis or the presentation or the seminar or the article lacks central focus, central argument. There must be central argument. When you are writing a paper, if you are writing a chapter, for instance, you are writing your thesis, there will be overall, central thesis. Then there will be sub-thesis. So each chapter will carry sub-thesis. And that is how you tell us, the focus of your essay. So a thesis is the central argument of a paper. So what are the importance of thesis? So thesis statement, it is usually rendered in a sentence. When you write a thesis statement, it is always in a sentence. Then it carries the central argument of the paper. It is the core or the key aspect of the paper. It explains why and how events happened. For history, that your argument will tell us why and how an event you are trying to explore happened. Then it also makes claims that are valid or disputable. Your thesis statements, scholars or scientists will hold you on it, whether what you said is valid scientifically or it is disputable. So it is always very good to establish your thesis statements. Then paragraph is also an important element of a body of essay. A paragraph is a distinct section of an essay, usually conveys a new point indicated by a new line, an indentation, or a numbering. We take it for granted, but it is always very important to understand that each paragraph conveys an important point. There must be a point that it conveys. If it doesn't convey a point or buttresses the previous point, then it is a waste. So how do you structure your paragraph? The first thing is that each paragraph contains a theme. There must be something that the paragraph is talking about. Then a paragraph opens with a topic sentence. The first sentence is the summary or the core or the argument of what the sentence is trying to talk about. Then a paragraph contains major points. Then it also contains details of the topic. Let's say you are talking about robbery in a paragraph, for instance. Your core argument of street robbery you are talking about must be your opening or topic sentence there. Then you move on to give us the details of how and why it happened. Then when you are closing, as small as paragraph is, that these are the elements that is expected to be there. Then sentences. We write sentences, but we take so many things for granted. When we were in secondary school, we were taught the rule of concord. As we advance, we learn more and more. So each sentence must carry decisive statements. Historians don't waste their sentences. When you write a sentence, it must be decisive. Your sentence must not be doubtful. It must be decisive. Then it must be concise. It does not have to be very long. It does not have, what you can say in precision, in concise, you should not waste too much words on it. Then clarity, you must achieve clarity. What you are trying to do must be very clear, or you are trying to say must be very clear to your readers. Then you need to avoid repetition. You need to avoid repetition. Okay, you can do repetition not only using the same word. You can do repetition in your writing by using another word, still saying the same thing. So avoid repetition. Then also avoid first person singular. In history, we don't use I. Even if you are going to use it, it has to be very, you need to be very economical with it. It does not have to be often. So avoid first person singular, I. Avoid it. Then avoid slang. When you are writing history writing is a formal writing. So you need to avoid slang. Even when you are writing, for instance, you are writing about the gang, youth gang, for instance. Okay, of course, the street and youth gangs make use of slang. Where you need to, use their slangs for emphasis, you need to, explain so that you will not lose your readers in the process. Then coherence. There must be, your thought must be orderly. Then your essay, your writing must be orderly. Don't let your readers lose their minds. So if you do not lose your mind, the thought of your readers too will be straight, will be coherent. So Then consistent use of tense. Usually in history, we make use of past tense. But in some situations, you may find yourself using present tense. For instance, when you want to, talk through the voice of another author, you are going to use the present tense. Okay, that one is different. But when you want to report historical events, that you make use of past tense. So historians make use of past tense. Where you need to make use of present tense for emphasis or for a particular effect, you must be consistent. Not that you use past tense in the main clause and use present tense in the subordinate clause. So sentences. Then diction. You need to equip yourself with diction, good words. So you need to choose your words carefully. Historians don't make use of words anyhow. You must choose your words carefully. Then you must get your words right. You must get your words right. The spelling must be correct. The spelling must be correct. If you want to write right, for instance, RIGHT, and you end up writing WRIGHT, it is different. Okay, you must get your word right. Then make dictionary your companion. Where you doubt any word, confirm through dictionary. Then consider the context. Whenever you want to make use of a word, consider if it fits the context you are trying to deploy the word. Then avoid first person and distant pronoun. I made mention of first person the other time. Then distant pronouns are pronouns like one may, for instance, want to, instead of saying that, your historical subject, or instead of saying they, or, you are using the word one. That kind of pronoun is distant. It is confusing. Then the use of repetition. If you want to use repetition, use it only for emphasis. Avoid repetition, but use repetition only for emphasis. Then avoid truncation or abbreviation. Where you need to abbreviate, you must first, write that particular word in full. It must first be written in full before you abbreviate. Then avoid derogatory words. Avoid derogatory words. As historians, we need to, keep updating ourselves. There are certain words that were universally acceptable maybe a decade ago, but now they are now, derogatory. For instance, now, albino, you cannot make use of albino. Call somebody albino now. They find it quite offensive. So we need to update ourselves so that we'll be able to avoid. Okay, let me give you an instance. I wrote a paper recently, and I was talking about human being generally. Before, we can make use of man as a universal or generic noun to, talk about man and woman. And I use that all through. But by the time the editor sent the reviewers, in fact, his first comment to me, the first thing he mentioned was that I was not, considering the gender variation. The world is really moving pretty very fast. So you need to update yourself. That day, I learned new things. So I had to force myself to, make use of the word human. So avoid derogatory words. Then use modern day language. Use modern day language. Because you want to impress your readers, you don't have to go and use Shakespearean age words. They won't understand. The generation that read Macbeth that read Othello and Co. is different from the generation that we have now. So the words have over time, been, changed. New words have been included. Many old words have been removed. So use modern day language in your essay. Then figurative expression. Figure of speech is part of historical writing. Particularly, historian will make use of metaphor. It adds flavor to our writing. It also, it's a kind of spice that historian, sometimes inject into their writing. For instance, historians, when they want to talk about new beginning, they would say the dawn of a new era. At the turn of the century, they can say something was shrouded in mystery, that it was in a vogue political landscape, the last straw that broke the camel's back, etc. These are metaphors, but you must not use complex metaphor. Metaphor that will be difficult for your readers to understand must not be used. But if you are very creative, metaphor is very useful in scientific writing. I've made use of metaphor a lot in my writing. And the best way to use metaphor is to help you conceptualize your idea. To help you conceptualize your idea. Okay, you can use it to open new knowledge and to approach old problems. Let me give you an instance of what I'm doing now, and I have experimented part of it. So I'm looking at possibility of writing history of spatial relations in urban settings. How do human beings, relate? History of it. How can we write it? Okay. So I was looking at how do I asked myself, how could I do this? Then I made use of mirror metaphor. What do I mean by that? I try to mirror urban setting using cemetery. So I looked at the layout, the way cemetery space is organized to mirror how urban setting is organized. Such, creative way of, making use of figure of speech is acceptable, but we must not be too complex about it. Otherwise, we lose our reader. Okay. So the next thing is to talk about peer review. When you write your essay, you submit it. If it is your project, you submit it to the department. Your supervisor will read. When he reads, he will identify the strengths and the weaknesses of your essay, and he will ask you to read it. To make corrections. Then your essays will be sent to internal and external reviewers. People within the university will read your essays. They will come. People outside, an external examiner will read your essay. These people are reviewers in the real sense of it. If you are publishing your essay in a journal, there are people called peer reviewers. These are usually, selected by the editors. These people are experts in your field, in the field that you are trying to publish. These people will make their comments on your essay. So we have three basic ways of peer review. We have blind review. Now I'm focusing more on journal now. We have blind review. Blind review, here, you don't know the reviewer, the person they gave your essay to. They don't know you. So it is pure anonymous. They will review the thing objectively based on what is presented before them. It could be a single peer reviewer. Then it might be some journals make use of double peer reviewers, some triple. It means that 2 or 3 people will look at your. So this is called anonymous review or blind review. Then we also have open access review. In open access review, your duties will be known to the reviewer. In fact, they may ask you to suggest the reviewer. That is open access review. You know the reviewer knows you. That is open access reviewer. But it doesn't mean that it will compromise the standard of the review process. Then transparent review. In transparent review, nothing is hidden. You know the reviewers will know your identity. Then even after everything, when your work is to be published, they will publish the comments of the reviewers and the correction that you made along with the paper. Then collaborative review. In collaborative review, they set up a team of people to assess the article you have submitted to to the journal. That is collaborative review. Then post-publication review. Sometimes when you publish, then your publication generates debate or some reactions. They go back to review your work. You may be asked to respond to that comment or request. Then your response will also be peer reviewed again and be published again. That is post-publication review. So that is about review. Then beyond our departmental level, getting our degree, as a graduate student, there are certain things that are expected of you. One, seminar attendance, conference attendance, and by now you should cultivate the culture of publishing. Okay, so where do you publish? We have like 4 categories of journals. We have tier 1 journals. We have second tier journals, third rank journals, and of course we have predatory journals. Okay, tier 1 journals are those journals that once you publish there, you are made. In African studies, for instance, let me say in historical studies, for instance, journals like Journal of African History, JAR, International Journal of African History, History in Africa. These are top-rated journals in African history. Then in African studies, we have African Studies Review, Africa. These are tier 1 journal. Canadian Journals of African Studies. These are tier 1 journals. Okay, and the process of reviewing articles there is very rigorous, very, very rigorous. Okay, and when you look at the board, editorial board, when you look at the composition of editorial board, you will see that they are who is who in African studies or in historical studies. Okay, then the third rank journals are those journals that are aspiring. The second rate journals are the journals who have already they are establishing, but they are not fully established, but they are reputable. They are high rank journal, but when you look at the ratio, okay, when you look at the acceptance ratio of those journals compare with those tier 1 journal, we see that where tier 1 journal or first rank journal accept like between 8 and 10% of annual contribution to their journal. Tier 2 may accept up to 30%. Then tier 3 or third rank journals are those journals they can be called, they are still, evolving. They are still evolving. They are still evolving. They also follow rigorous process, but they have not, reached the level of those established journals. Then the kind of their reputation is very low compared to the tier 1 and tier 2 journals. Okay. Then predatory journals. Predatory journals are the worst journals that you must never publish there. They are predators. They are predators. And these kind of journals, they are usually established to make money. Any journal, any foreign journal that asks you to pay money, run. Run. Of course, there are all these first class journals too, they collect money for open access. When your journal, article is accepted, there is an option known as open access. Okay, that one you pay for it, which means that your article will be downloadable free of charge. It means that you have paid ahead for anybody to access your article directly. Usually, institution pays for their scholars publishing in those journals. So, but because, many African scholars could not enter second rank and first rank journals, they found it very difficult to publish there. So they now move to predatory journal, and they pay a lot. We have some journals that collect around $1,000 from African scholars to publish. Once you publish there, you are finished as a scholar, because these journals, they also have one thing, they have feasibility, online feasibility. Anytime they type your name like this, it will take them to that page. So now all these predatory high rank journals, how do you identify them? The first thing as a scholar you do when you want to check a journal, go and look at
Shina,
yes, sir.
You want to move your slides? Are you still on the same slide?
Oh, okay. I'm actually coming to this, but okay.
Okay, it's okay.
Yes, sir. So how do we identify good journals? The first thing you do is, one, look at the name of the journals. When you open the journals page, go and check, all the people in the editorial board. Google their names. They will claim that they are in so university. Google their name. If you cannot find them in those universities, then you must suspect the journal. The second thing is, who are the people who are published there? The names of the people who are published in those journals matters a lot. Then the third thing is that, do they charge fee for publishing their journal? If they do, then there is a problem. Then you should prepare to run. Then the last thing is, you look at, their review process. If it is not blind review, you should suspect. If it is open access review and other criteria are met, then you are okay. But if not, run. There are some journals that some of our colleagues across Nigeria are publishing now. The address on that journal, if you Google it, it will take you to grocery shop. There is another journal that will take you to, textile shop. And the names of people in the editorial board, none of them exist. And African people, because we want to publish, we don't want to perish, we publish there. So we need to be guided. Okay. So when you send your article out to reviewers, you are likely to meet different types of responses. It could be positive, it could be negative. So if your review, I'll send something on your WhatsApp, the the last negative review I got recently, I'll share it with you. Okay. I've published the article already now, but before I got the article published in another journal, so whether you're a senior professor or junior professor or younger scholar, it's a process that you are going to pass through, i.e., your article can be rejected or accepted. So if your article is rejected, what do you do? Okay, so the first thing is that when you receive it, it is just like a man who has been, whose hope, or who has been jilted by a woman. You know how it feels. A lover jilted, you know how it feels. Okay, so it will be as if they strike an arrow to your heart, but you have to take heart. Okay, so when you receive rejection like that, what do? The first thing is read it, then close it. So sleep on it. Don't respond immediately. Don't respond immediately, because if you do, you respond out of emotion. You respond out of emotion. So, and in science or scholarship, you need to be objective. What you do not see or what you do not know, other people can see or they could know, and it is to your advantage. Okay, so what do? You sleep on it. Don't respond immediately. Read it and ruminate about it. Think over it. Then when you want to respond to each comment. To every comment. Respond to all the comments. And how do you do that? You should be systematic in your response. You should be systematic in your response. So you pick each point they raised, you answer it. You pick another, you answer. That's how you do. Then show changes that you have done or you prepare to do to make the article better. Some articles are not rejected outrightly. They may say major revision is required. Okay, if they say major revision is required, you go back and rework it. Then be polite, even when you disagree with their positions. Sometimes some editors or reviewers are nasty, the way they will talk to you as if you don't know anything. So such, usually infuriates African scholars. But when you see that, you don't have to try to be polite when you are responding. Okay. So, and when you want to send, when you receive rejection letter, to me, I always see it as advantage. Rejection letter means that so many things are missing. And what I usually do is I use their, comments to guide me in revising my paper. And by the time I'm done with the revision, the paper will be better than it was. So thank you very much. There are some let me see if Prof permits me. I would like to share a few instances I downloaded, or maybe I should send it to our page. We can from there look at it if we have any comment. In fact, that WhatsApp should be a page where I expect students will generate, we can start debating, ask questions, and we can, be responding. If there's anything you discuss in the class that you could not, discussion could not end here, you can, of course, continue debate on that platform. So thank you very much, Prof, for the honor.
Thank you very much, dear Professor. Thanks for taking the trouble to do such a comprehensive write-up and a comprehensive presentation. It's the hallmark of a good scholar to put in the details as much as possible and at the same time be concise in your presentation. Sometimes people are putting in the details but they are not concise. Ability to write a one-page proposal, a two-page proposal is the hallmark of a good scholar. Be able to say everything you want to say in a way that you don't bore your reader. Let me just emphasize or clarify some of the things he said, because some of them you need to also understand the context. When he mentioned that you can kickstart your introduction with a question, please don't use question when you are answering an exam. It's when you are writing an essay, you are writing a paper for publication in which you are taking ownership. If you are writing an essay, a class essay for submission, please avoid asking questions. In fact, I learned that I used to ask questions in my responses. And my teacher said, who do you expect to answer this question? Put it on my script. Who do you expect to answer this question? That I've asked you a question, you can't be asking me a question. So you have to be careful that is for your essay that you are giving to somebody to mark, to get a grade. That is your course assessment, your exam script, and other things. So avoid that stuff. But for writing generally, it's a good style to kickstart and to provoke people's thoughts by asking them questions. That's one. Then number two, Dr. Alimi mentioned the need to ensure that your paragraphs have themes. Okay. The way you present is very important. If you have a paragraph that runs into several pages, you have wasted the teacher's time. You have wasted the reader's time, and it clutters your message. But sometimes, and that is why your paragraph can your theme can run into one or two paragraphs. So I'm sure it's not telling us that every new paragraph must have a new theme. I don't think that's what he said. But there must be a running theme, a focus for that paragraph. It could be flowing from the previous one. It could be a continuation, but there should be a focus. There should be a theme that you identify with it. That's very important. Don't write meaningless paragraphs that the man will say, what is this saying? Many times I read things and say, Kilele so. I mean, just try to so please stop writing. There's no point. And then first person singular. That's very interesting. I came from the background of history. So I was used to avoiding first person singular. But I did my PhD in international relations. So they have a different methodology. So when I wrote we, my supervisor said, how many of you? So it depends on who you are writing for. If you are writing for social sciences, it could be acceptable to do, no, they may ask you, who are you writing? Who are the we that you are referring to? That the knowledge, what you take ownership for what you are writing. But for history, it sounds pompous for you to be writing, I think, or so you have to be careful how you balance that element of the first person singular, first person plural, to be able to present in a way that doesn't make you look arrogant, because for the historian, it's arrogant to be using first person singular. But for social sciences, sometimes you need to take ownership of what you are writing. Blind review, anonymous, is very interesting. That's what it's supposed to be. But you discovered that if you are really in the discipline, you might actually know who is writing without their names being on it. If I take your footnotes, I can guess who the author is. So that means that you have a responsibility to present yourself as best as possible, because sometimes you can detect your identity through your references and through the writing. There was a paper that was submitted to me when I was editing the Journal of History. I sent it to a reviewer, and the reviewer said, you can ask XYZ to comment on this paper. But it was actually that XYZ who wrote the paper. So, meaning that people actually also know those who are working in their area if you're a serious scholar. Now, one of our colleagues went to UK and was discussing developments in his department. And he said, oh, XYZ was promoted a professor. I said, oh, professor of what? Then he mentioned the area. So, then the next question is, where does he publish? One, meaning that they don't know him, they don't know his writing, and that is a disaster for any scholar. If you're a scholar and your colleagues outside do not know you, or do not know where you publish, or do not know what to write on, it says a lot about the quality of a scholarship. So I want to beg you, if you are pursuing an academic career, be one scholar that when they mention your name, it will attract attention, not a negative one. And Shina made one important point. Even the predatory journals have online presence. And once you publish there, people lose respect for you. Oh, that's where it's publishing. That's journal. So be very careful. Don't think that, oh, you just want to publish and get your work done out. You can get your work out and get your scholarship buried forever. And people lose respect for you. Although in some parts of the world, some of our universities today, anything goes. But don't be an anything goes scholar, I beg you. Predatory versus commercial, I'm happy you also explain the difference. Because you are required to pay does not mean it's a predatory journal. For open access quality journals, you have to pay for people to have open access to your publications. But if you work in a reputable institution, usually your institution pays. My last publication, was it the last one or the previous one? That was in Africa, College at Cambridge University Press. OAU has an agreement with them. So any OAU staff that publishes there, you don't have to pay. So it also depends on your institution and it depends on the kind of journal. So be very careful. So they're not going to ask you to pay ordinarily if your institution is in agreement with them. And when they ask you to pay for an online open access journal that is quality journal, sometimes they ask you to pay to cover the cost of making it accessible to everybody. And everybody wants to be seen anyway. They want to write an article that nobody is reading. So sometimes they require you to make some payment. But those journals that ask you to pay $500 after submitting your paper today and your article comes out next week, I beg you, run away from them. I don't know if Shina or Sai know about my travels when I was dean of the faculty. Shina, I think you were part 2 or part 3 at the time when I ran into stormy waters in the university because the AMP asked me to investigate some journals. And I was the most unpopular person on the campus because there are too many people publishing in those predatory journals. I mean, somebody publishes 4 articles in one journal, one edition of a journal today, next month publish another 4. You know that that's not a journal. But then some people have been promoted. And the problem of limiting promotion to up to a particular level, lecturer 1, senior lecturer to the faculty, is that nobody knows what they are doing outside the faculty in other places. By the time it comes to A&P, and we see what they have used to be promoted to senior lecturer, that they're not even qualified to be lecturer one, but red already been promoted. So it creates a kind of crisis in the system. So don't create a problem for yourself by publishing useless journals that you cannot stand up to in the future. What makes you a scholar is a totality, the kind of research and the kind of publishing. If you do a quality research and publish it in a poor journal, that means you are lazy. And I always say this thing, the difference between publishing a quality journal and a poor one is just a little effort more to upgrade your standard, to upgrade yourself, to upgrade your qualification. A little more effort and you get to there. But some people are too lazy to do that. And finally, I mean, there will be other issues we want to raise. Because you can locate an individual institution on the editorial board does not mean that the person is credible. Those journals, they call them European Journal of Social Sciences. Now, lie. Their editorial offices in Ibadan or somewhere in Bukateria here in Ife or no campus. There are two journals that, thank God, there are two journals that were listed as one in England, one in the US, which I discovered they were printing they were typing the letter of acceptance in African studies, no issue. And their journals officially listed as international, one in England, one in the United States, one in SOAS, one in North Carolina. And the acceptance letters were being printed in African Studies building, no issue here. And when the crisis came out, one of them, I won't mention the person, he said, and I warned them, you that you warned them at the time that it's good. They say somebody would discover. All I asked for was a copy of the edition, a copy of an edition of the journal. That's all. Let me see one copy. And nobody could produce one. But there are so many letters of acceptance, all written in African Studies building, on the way to Buka, old Buka. So because you can find their name does not mean it's a credible journal. Do your due diligence to ensure you are not publishing in a predatory journal. Please do your due diligence. Please, you can ask your questions. Shina is there to take your questions. If I can leave this platform for him to continue coordinating, and I'm sure that he will do a good job for us. Thank you, Said. We saw you joining us. You have not given us the privilege of seeing you since we started. Thanks for coming. You want to show support for Shina, Abi? Okay.
Yes.
God day.
Thank you very much, sir.
You can harass him because he refused to join us for our discussions. He refused to share experiences with us.
We thank God that,
what are you saying? Me, well.
Okay, sir. Can you hear me now, sir?
Yeah, so yeah, give us your excuse.
Okay, Dr. Alimi or Dr. Musa?
You, Said, give us your excuse. Why you have not joined us?
I have been joining.
Have you shared experiences with us?
Yeah. The first two
have you shared experiences with us? What I told the students, and you know that these people are mature students, is that we need to be able to relate to people that you see. And they can tell you, and you know that those who are writing those things did not draw from heaven. They are human beings like them. And when they see an example of excellence, that excellence is attainable. That's the essence of having you, Shino, all of you, Tayo, additional, Professor Albert, to come and discuss with the class. That's the thing. And if you deprive us of the thing, well, don't worry, we'll survive. Okay. Your comments, questions for the teacher.
Yes, sir. Thank you very much, sir. I want to, let me first of all thank you, sir, for the opportunity of this platform. I also want to thank Dr. Alimi for the very comprehensive and scholarly write-up and presentation. And then to congratulate the class on this golden opportunity that they have. Having said that, sir, I want to say that, in fact, I could have said that nothing to add or nothing to remove. But like you have taught us, there is no paper that cannot be improved upon. There can be a perfect presentation in any scholarly endeavor. I want to add to the area of language of history. Language of history. In other words, since what we are writing about are events that have taken place in the past, so we must be very careful, and we must be very we must ensure that we write in the reported speeches, reported language, past tenses, past participles. Then we must also not use generalized statements. We must not generalize. And we must also write as historians, like using words like probability, perhaps, it was possible, it was plausible, probably, so that we know that our readers, we know that we are actually professional historians. Then, since our audience is largely students who will be writing research essays very soon, I want you, or Dr. Alimi, to help us. There are some areas that always give our students problems when they are writing their thesis. So these are twin areas. One, introduction and background to the study. Introduction and background to the study. Are they the same thing? Then what should be there? What should be? Because some people will write background to the study and you will think that they are writing literature review. Some people will write background to the study and you. So what I'm saying is that how do we write our introduction? Let's say we have a topic like this. What should be in the introduction? What should be in the background to the study? And if they mean the same thing, what are the stuff that we expect from this key area? Number two is casting or framing our objectives of the study. When some people write objectives of the study, you will realize that these are not original. What are you really writing on? So we should note that our objectives should directly address our contributions. For instance, when I presented my my first seminar for the PhD, I wrote on policing and the decolonization process in Nigeria. And my first question was that, why was the police established in Nigeria? Why did the colonial government establish the police? And Professor Rotimi asked me that, is that original? Everybody, even somebody who is not in police history, knows why the colonial master established the police. So we need to be very careful in this area. Then can we historians today, can we actually include research questions and what do they call it? Hypothesis in our studies today, particularly in thesis? Research questions, research hypotheses. These are creeping into historical research. So I want you to enlighten us on this area, since you have a historical and background of international relations, which is social science. Then there's also this issue of a theoretical background and conceptual framework. Theoretical background and conceptual framework. People mix them up. Even if we need them in historical research, we need to be enlightened on these two areas: theoretical background, conceptual framework, and related terms. Then significance of the study, justification for the study. I've come across theses which have the two. Many theses have the two: significance of the study, justification for the study. In some theses, they will say significance and justification of the study. So at times when I go through, I just realize that I can't get anything from what the authors are trying to say. Then literature review, sir. Literature review. As a member of the board of Ile-Ife College, I come across a lot of examples. For instance, our colleagues in the social sciences, when they say literature review, you realize that what they are saying there is like definition of terms. This author says this about this concept, this author says about this concept, then definition of or terms, literature review, state of knowledge. Do we need actually to have them as a section of our work? I mean, historical work now. Because even when one submits articles for journals, they will say they need a section for literature review, which we don't really include in publishing in history journals. So these are gray areas which I think maybe you or the presenter can help us shed light to assist our students. Once again, I thank you very much, sir, for the platform, and thank Dr. Alimi for his scholarly presentation. Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you. Does Shina want to respond?
Thank you very much, sir.
Yeah.
And I appreciate my colleague, my senior colleague, Dr. Saeed Hamza, for those questions. Yeah, two things. The first is actually focusing on the writing thesis. The second on a large platform like journals. Okay, so for the thesis, you ask question about background and introduction. Let me make this clear. The peculiarity of OAU PG College is different from the way the larger academic society operates. Okay, OAU College, PG College has its own format. It has its own format. Okay, so there are so many technical things, that we in humanities we contend that these are actually social science style that we do not have to follow it, that it affects the way we write in the humanities. So I think each department has to have interaction with the PG college over the peculiarity of their discipline. So that's number one. For us, for instance, we make use of background to the study. Okay, so the issue of background to the study and introduction. Introduction is a larger word, larger concept. Okay, so within the introduction, you still have your background to the study. Many students usually make a mistake of telling all the stories in the world in their background to the study. But within the introduction, like I mentioned in my presentation, there are certain key concepts, key points that need to be in your introduction. Okay, you must tell us, the direction of your research, then the a problem or the gap that your research is trying to look at. Then you should also give us, something like your argument or thesis statement. Of course, when you get to the area where you are going to give us, full details about your thesis statement, but there must be something within that your introduction that will tell. So your introduction must contain what you want to do in a small or a brief form. Okay, I listed some key points like thesis, argument, objectives, and co. But this may not be so, okay, when you are writing for thesis. But when you are writing a paper, it is expected that these things should be stated. You need to tell us the statement of the problem of your research. It might be just one sentence or two sentences, but the way you conceptualize everything matters a lot. Okay, so the way we write for larger audience, academic platform is different from the way we write thesis, and the way we write thesis is peculiar to the grand rule that the OAU PG College has already prescribed to us. And I assume that there is a manual too, a manual that it is expected that every department has to follow. So that is all I can say about about that. But for introduction and background is just, I mean, a component of the introduction, and it could just be, a paragraph or, I mean, few statements. But the way we write it, okay, if you remember the last seminar we did in the department, I mentioned something that we need to sit down and review our methodology. And these are key aspects or key components of, I mean, our methodological, discourse that we need to have. Okay, so that's what I can say about that.
That's this is one other comments.
Yeah. Yes, sir.
No, Shina, have other comments.
Oh, okay.
Nothing for now.
Okay, let me just quickly respond to some of the comments made by Said, which you have responded to on the question of style. Look, we are building you for a world outside OAU. The OAU format is not the end of it all. Okay? You can follow the format to satisfy the university examiners and their system. But when you are writing for international journals, they're not going to say that is how you write it on OAU. You must know what the out style is. Many journals have their own style. They have their own style of writing. But there are some things that are universal, particularly for a profession like history. There are some things that are common. And we have always had this debate with the graduate school, the postgraduate school in Ile-Ife, with the domination by those in science and social sciences. We are always in the minority, but the faculty is trying to get its views, like the promotion criteria now, which the faculty successfully argued in A&P that you can't require somebody to automatically do joint work. Somebody who is in literature, who is writing a poem, are you asking him to go and get somebody to go and write a poem with him? That these are some of the things that are inanities. That combined work, I mean, joint publications could be standard in medicine, could be standard in biology, could be standard in architecture, but in history, in literature, in philosophy, somebody in philosophy sits down in his house and is thinking, you're asking that he must write a joint publication. It doesn't work. So we've had that argument successfully done at the faculty now in the university. But there are other elements in which we need to deliver our faculty and the humanities, generally from the intimidation of the science because of their large number. But what I'm saying is that you are not writing for ASU after your PhD, after your master's. You are writing for a larger community, okay? And your standard is that community, not OAU. If an OAU staff applies for a fellowship abroad and uses the OAU format for CV, it's likely not to get it. Because the OAU CV is so bland. So when you want to write for an international community, look at the standards for that community, particularly the target community. That's number one. Number two, Said, turn on your camera because we want to see you. Number two, do you do research questions in history? Do you do hypothesis? Because of my background, I mean, I went on to social sciences, so they're standard. But there is no research you are doing that should not have research question. Then what are you investigating if you don't have any research question? There must be a problem you are investigating. There must be a topic you are trying to resolve, you are trying to answer. So that must provoke some research questions. And how you respond to them is how we judge whether you have been faithful to your work. Because sometimes you pick a thesis. You don't know whether the person who wrote the introduction is the person who wrote the thesis. there is a dissonance between the introduction and the thesis and the conclusion. We measure you by what you say you want to do. Once we agree with what you want to say you want to do in the introduction, then the rest of your thesis must follow that pattern, must respond to what you are saying. And if in the course of your research, what you say you want to do is not being reflected, then you have to go back to your introduction before you present it. So research questions are standard for any work because there must be something you're investigating and there must be something must judge you by whether you are faithful to your work or not. Because you cannot just give us something and say, that is it. There must be a coherence between the introduction, the body, and the conclusion. Many times you discover that even the conclusion of a paper, of a thesis, is an article published in a journal on its own. In fact, my first published article after my PhD was my conclusion of my thesis. And that conclusion, I just woke up one night and I started writing. Because it was just an inspiration that came, this I'm going to conclude this thesis. And it turned out to be an article on its own. But my examiner said, please go ahead and publish this thing first. And the first thing it was published, I'd published before then, but the first article I published after my PhD was the conclusion of my thesis. So your work should reflect your research. There must be something you are answering, you are asking us to consider, no matter what you are writing on. I started writing on the civil service, the knowledge of the civil service in colonial Nigeria for my PhD before I got the scholarship to go abroad. And there were questions as to what the research was about. How did we build the capacity of the first generation of civil servants? How are they selected? How are they trained? Where were they trained? And all of those issues. And how did it affect the quality of the service in the years after? So how do you distinguish between the endeavors of this world, the senior endeavors of this world, the majors of this world, and the current generation of public servants? These are issues that you cannot dismiss. So research questions are primary. Now, hypothesis is a different matter. That is a different matter. Because if you remember in the class, when we are doing, what's this topic now? When we're asking ourselves about variables, okay? There are times you ask the correlation between X and Y. If you did this is particularly when you are doing quantification approach. If you are doing quantification method, if your research requires a quantification, you may have to have an hypothesis, but it's not generally required in history. But for those of you in economic history, you need to be able to do quantification. And when you do quantification, sometimes you require to be able to give us, if this happens, what will happen? What's going to be the outcome? But it's not compulsory that you should have hypothesis in historical work. You said significance and justification. You raised the issue of what's the difference between the two. Of course, significance is talking about the importance of the work, the importance of the study. Okay? Justification is why it should be done. Because it's important does not mean it must be done. It's not every important thing that gets answered. So, and why must it be done now if you want to add to it? So the justification is, why must you engage in this study? Mr. Fusheton, you want to do a work on a Fusheton, then you ask yourself, why a Fusheton now? Because you can justify by saying that some renowned scholars have perpetrated the myth about the woman's wickedness, and this ought to be corrected. That is a justification. It's not necessarily the importance, okay? The justification must be, you can be correcting a myth, you can be advancing a new knowledge, you can be doing whatever. So your justification is not necessarily significant. Significance is on its own, it's something that must be done. But justification is why it is being done. Why do you think this is worth our time to read? if I pick that article that you have written, what is in it for me? What am I getting out of it? What's the value? What's the value of it? So these are things that you need to ask yourself. So significance is there, justification is there. If they combine the two, I'm not too sure it's really neat. But justification is why it's supposed to be done. The justification can also make it important too. It can make it significant, but you should be able to separate, identify the two. What's the other thing? Literature review, state of the knowledge. Unfortunately, I didn't do for your class what I used to do for my PG students. My first class to the PG students is to tell them to go and get a book, a recent book, maximum 3 years old, and do a review of it. It is to test your ability to follow arguments, and then to test your ability to critique. Okay? Usually, I ask you to pick a book that is related to your intended area of thesis. Okay? But sometimes it may not be available, sometimes it may be out of reach and all that. But usually, I ask you to write a literature review of a book that speaks to an issue that is important to you. And then you tell us the strength and the weaknesses of the book and why it should be read or it should be discountenanced. So literature reviews is not just to critique the person. It is to locate it in the context of your study. Because, like Said said, or maybe Said or Shina, that you're not the only scholar. You're not the only person working in the area. Others have done something. I reviewed a book during my PhD on, what's the name of this author? It's an area on which I had little knowledge, and I was required to review it. So the first thing for me to do is just to go and read around the topic and see what others have written on the subject. If I see the book, I'll bring it to the class one day. But today, that review is still being referenced. So let's see. So state of knowledge is very important because you are not the only one. But because you found a lacuna, does not mean you're the only one who's working on the subject. The final issue I want to say, the last slide before the thank you slide of Shina is on evidence. You need for you to do referencing. And I want to bet, Said, can you do a session for us on footnoting and referencing? Can you? It's supposed to be the last class. The next one is supposed to be a general review. But I won't be available next week. That's why we're doing this today. Okay. And your exam is supposed to be 1 or 2 weeks' time. But I want you to have that skill as well. A major problem with many of the thesis people write is their footnoting and referencing style, which is not consistent. You must know how to do footnoting and how to do referencing. It's a whole session on its own. So can you help us take that? Shorai.
When will I be presenting it? Because now we are faced with marking and submission of results. When will it be presented so that I will know whether I will have time to do it?
Oh, can we do it sometimes next week?
I won't be able to do it.
There's no time. I'm not sure I'll have time on Wednesday.
Okay.
I won't have time on Wednesday. Because I have an appointment that starts at 2:20 and I don't know when it will finish. And I'll be on the road as well. Except it is in the evening. Can we have it in the evening?
I won't be able to present it next week, even not week after the next time. I have a lot.
They need to have this done, because by the time they are writing, they should know how to do their footnoting. They should know the difference between MLA, Harvard, APA styles, the ones that are acceptable for which type of writing. They need to know. Can I? We'll see how we sort it out because it's not on the syllabus. It's not on the curriculum. But it's something that they need to be able to do.
Yes.
They should be able to write, they should be able to reference their articles very well. Standard. Okay? Should be able to do very well. Shina Alimi.
Next week, I will interact with you.
Okay. It could be in the evening.
Sunday.
It could be 6 p.m., 7 p.m., 8 p.m.
All right, sir.
On the day.
Right, sir.
Yeah.
Yes,
it could
sir.
be 8 p.m.
No problem, sir.
So that
I will communicate with you, sir.
Okay.
Let me have the
class, be ready for it at any time. And it's not compulsory. It's just we are trying to. I mean, it's not on the syllabus.
Yeah.
It's not on the syllabus. So it's just to make sure that when you graduate from the methods of historical research class, you should be able to write.
Yes. And
what you write, you should be able to present and meet the required standards. That's all. It's not compulsory. If you don't want to, you don't have to come. Okay. Yeah. Thanks, Shino. I really appreciate it.
Yes, sir. I want to add something, sir.
Yes, please.
On that research question, and whether historians, should be writing research questions, I think it is very important, very, very important, because the way we formulate our objective, even for the thesis that our students are writing, how do you construct your objectives when you don't have clear-cut research questions? Your research question will tell us, will help you construct your objectives. I think if Dr. Amsa remembers, the first thing when I pick a presentation, a seminar paper, what I first look at is the research question, because that research question solves all. The fact that it is a practice in social science does not mean that it is peculiar to them. It is what guides historian to be able to articulate his or her thought very well. Then the writer or the historian will not, veer out of his focus. Then on theory and conceptual framework, whether historian could be using theoretical framework or concept. Yes, we can, but it depends on what exactly are you writing. You can't be writing on economic history that requires some, theoretical framework, and you say no. Okay, the fact that most African historians are not well grounded in theory doesn't mean that historians cannot use it. But there is a particular journal since the 50s, Journal of History and Theory, and when I checked the journal and I looked at what they published there, I was amazed. Okay, so what historians need to do when it comes to theory is to be more a little bit more. Look at the work from abstract level. Okay, it is not just about engaging empirical data alone. Okay, our thoughts about the data itself, generate theory itself. It might not be theory in the sense of social scientists, but our conclusion and the way we marshal our argument itself is theory, because by the time your argument, you validate your argument with available data. In a way, you are telling us, theoretically, that yes, you have come up, with something meaningful. It might not be, a theory that can be as general or be generalizable like that of social scientists, but at the same time, what historians do is that then when it comes to conceptual clarification, you make use of certain terms that you may need to explain, in the process of you writing your essay. If you are writing on a particular topic that you feel that certain terms are not, requires you to explain, otherwise you will lose, your readership, or your reader will not, be able to connect. It is important that in the process of, you writing your essay, clarify at the beginning that, oh, these are the concepts. So that by the time you start throwing the concept or you are applying the concept in your work, it will be very clear to them and they will flow along with you. So, I mean, the way we assume that theory is, I mean, something not meant for the historian, well, I don't believe, and you know that I enjoy using theory. So theoretical framework, yes, historian can use it, and it is different from conceptual framework. Conceptual framework are just basic terms that connect with your work, while theoretical framework is the statement that explain, that you use to, that is just like a bag that you use to carry your empirical data. But of course, historians, we have to be very careful so that in the process of using theoretical framework, you will not be accused of using a monocausal argument. So that's the, I mean, the little I can say about that. You have already explained the difference between significance of study and justification of study. So there's no more point about that. Thank you, sir.
Yeah. Comments from the class. We have gone past our time, but the essence of this class is you. So can we have comments and questions, clarifications? Jibara Lugbago wanted to say something when I asked him to hold on. Still.
Yes, sir. Okay, so let me say again, thank you, Dr. Alimi, for the time to take this class. It's been very elucidating. Now, one of the things that not so clear to me is where you spoke about the style of writing an essay. Now, from what I gather, the way you explained it, and you actually used the word story, you wrote it as if, I mean, you said it as if writing an essay on historical research is like writing a story. The question now to me is it writing a story? Because if I did a research work, I am supposed to gather all the information that I have come across in the course of research work and then write it out in form of an essay. But if I have to add the looks of the essay, the sounds, you still even talked about the voice, the vocabulary, well, the vocabulary, I can understand that, but the look, the voice, the sound, and then how to make it appealing or hook the reader for a research work. Is that, I don't know, maybe the essay content of it, but my question really is that the writing is the historical essay. Is it similar to writing a story? Thank you, sir.
You want to take that on?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, please go ahead.
Thank you, sir, for the question. I understand you perfectly. Well, whether writing history is like writing a story or novel, fiction or not. Well, if you followed, my presentation, I didn't say that history is a novel or a fiction or, writing history is writing story. But it does not mean that some technical way of writing fiction, the historian cannot blend it. It doesn't mean, okay? And when I started the presentation, I started by saying that history writing has to do with scientific investigation, and it is also like a craft. It's a craft that is scientific in nature, and it is also artful or creative, okay? About the scientific aspect of it, I said it is investigation. Story writing is a work of imagination, pure imagination, and even non-fiction requires little investigation. Historians, they deal with investigation. So you are writing something that had happened, not something that somebody just imagine and put down. So that is point number one. So history is not a story. So it's not a story in the sense of fiction. Then the second thing is that, that by asking you to pay attention to, your style, your sound, your voice, and so on, okay, that is it not sounding like a story? There are certain things that we have taken for granted as historians, okay, and that is why we pretend that we are not, in literature. Yes, we are not, but the thing is that we are also writing, and these are technical aspects of writing. When people pick your work, how do they recognize that this work, somebody here, this is the voice of somebody, or I can feel you in your work. These are the area that we have taken for granted. That the sound. When you read unconsciously, you read with your mind and you hear, okay, because why historian is writing, okay, he combines his fact and his imagination in his writing. When you are reading the work of history, you also imagine. You are reading about Mansa Musa traveling, across the desert to Egypt. You think in your imagination, you think about a caravan following Mansa Musa to Egypt. Okay, the same thing, historian writing. Okay, what is his style? How does he describe, his historical actor? How does he describe him? And the way you describe it, we also affect the way your reader will imagine or perceive, the historical actor or event that you are talking about. Okay. So the voice, the sound, the style is not in the real sense or in the sense of fiction that you are talking about. But when you are writing as a historian, it is expected that you attract your readers, okay, based on the way your presentation, okay. So what we are saying here is that your presentation, we are talking about the elements of your presentation. You need to be, it is not just writing, sentences, okay. Your sentence must be decisive. Your style must be, clear. Okay, so that is what we mean, not in the sense of fiction. Okay, history is not as fiction. It is an investigation. But you that are writing that particular story, you are also an artist. You are weaving. Okay, you are deploying your creativity. Okay, so and in deploying your creativity, you need all these technical and these elements to make sure that your audience appreciate your work. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments, questions? Akande, Amo, Adewale, Patai, Benson, the runaway students. Adewale.
Thank you, sir. Dr. Alimi, thank you for taking time to teach us today. Then our Oga, Dr. Said Amusa, we also thank you too for your meaningful contribution and your guidance. And Prof, thank you too, sir. Basically, I think it's not really a confusion now because I can see from the contribution of both from the lecture delivered by Dr. Alimi and the contribution of Dr. Amusa. I can see that I think maybe the Department of History generally is here to reach a unanimous conclusion on how to make use of theory. I think that's basically the point of my confusion, because I remember I think there was a conference we attended, not a conference, I think a seminar, a PhD seminar that we attended at the department. I think the very first week we resumed. I think Jelilat was there. I think Mr. Motu was also there. There were the external supervisor that was there to assess the work. I think it was from the social science department. I don't know the department, but it was from the social. So it was it was criticizing the work based on the fact that there was no, I think that the theoretical framework or something was missing. So it led to a series of arguments between the scholars in history department and the scholar from the social sciences. So some scholars in history department were also of the view that there is a need for us to use for the presenter to use a theoretical framework. Then also I remember the Professor Ogunyemi's class, he mentioned something to us. He said, according to him, he said in his writing that he doesn't theorize, that what he do is that he problematize. If some of my colleagues could still remember on the day Prof mentioned that. But in a way, to me, where I was also confused was that I remember the presentation that Professor Ogunyemi delivered, the seminar paper he delivered at the for the NAL Academy, I think National Academic of Letters, and on judgment debts and fiscal responsibilities. He also made use of a social contract theory to explain his position on a judgment debt. So that's where I'm confused. That, okay, on this issue of theory, can we say, okay, we can use theory, but I think from what, I think it's Prof that mentioned it, or maybe Dr. Alimi, that maybe on economic history or some history that requires the usage of theory, we can apply theory, or some other, we can decide not to apply. So that's the point of confusion. I really don't know what, and also I realized, like I said, there is no unity in it, because even yesterday, Professor Adesina said in Ibadan that they started making use of a recommendation, but, and I know in history, it was still mentioned even at that seminar, that in history that we don't reach conclusion, we don't make, that we don't make recommendation, that we don't project. But Professor Adesina said yesterday that in Ibadan, they're already making a recommendation. So I think maybe just as Dr. Alimi advised, and Dr. Amsa, what we just have to do is to study the PG guidance according to what the department wants. Then we use that to write our thesis. While when we are writing for academic journal or for outside community, then we adopt the generally accepted pattern. So I don't know, but that's basically where I'm confused.
You shouldn't be confused. It's not every research that follows the same pattern. The kind of research you are doing will determine your approach to it. If you are doing, maybe it's a history of Christianity in Ikale land, what theory are you theorizing? Arrival, impact, and all that. There are studies that are straightforward, that are engaging with issues, that you want to know what happened. Because the levels of why, how are different things. What is different from why it happened? Okay. It's not every research that you are doing that will lend itself to the same typology, the same paradigm of analysis. And don't box yourself into a situation where you pick a topic and you're looking for thesis, hypothesis, research question, objective. Then you have become a robot and you're trying to fit in facts and figures into those things. It is the study that will determine the kind of approach, the kind of paradigm you're going to adopt. So don't be confused at all. It's not compulsory that you should use, what do you call it, hypothesis. I don't think. But if you're in social sciences, yes. So don't box yourself into a corner where you are looking for a theory to fit into your research. There is a danger in that, trying to box yourself into that corner. It's not worth it. I don't know whether I've answered your question.
Yes, sir, you have, sir. Thank you, sir.
If Said or Shina wants to add to it.
Yes, sir. Adewale, like Prof said, context will determine whether you want to make use of theory or not. And if the context you are writing is, what you are writing is just pure narration, you just telling us, the event as it were, okay, without problematizing it, without complicating it, may not need to. And making use of theory sometimes may also narrow you, okay? It will narrow, the opportunities that historians usually have, okay, considering many factors, okay? So if you want to make use of theory, you have to, master it, then you must be able to justify it. If you cannot justify using theory, then you don't have to make use of it. But what I was saying is that historian can make use of theory, provided that it is necessary. Okay, so that is it.
It's
All right,
the
thank you,
story that
sir.
will determine it. Yeah.
Thank you, sir.
So, any comments?
Not
Okay. Any other question? If you go past Q2, you are going to contribute to Shina's next month's salary because you're asking him to do more than the university is paying him. So I'll ask you to contribute the additional. But any other question, comments? Okay. No comments, no question. Who silenced you? Akonde? Okay. Fatai? Okay.
Sir,
Since everybody is afraid of Shina, you don't want to ask him questions.
no, not at all, sir.
Okay. Okay, so on that note, I think we should just appreciate our guest speaker. Will the class rep do that for us to appreciate our guest speaker? Or do you want the chief to do that? Is the big man here?
Yes, sir. Chief can go ahead, sir. Yes.
But his
Chief,
internet has not been stable, so
okay.
he may start and not even
Well,
reply.
yes, unfortunately, we're in the rural area. Well, I seize this opportunity to thank you very much, Dr. Alimi, for the time that you have put in today to give us a real scholarly lecture. We have been taught up to this level, I would say adequately, by Professor Akanyade, who is a main teacher in this class. However, you have helped us to add a dimension to it, especially in the topic that you took, which is the writing and presentation of historical research work. A lot of the things that you talked about have also been touched on by Professor Akanyade in the course of the class over this semester. But we do appreciate the angle to which you have brought to it and some of the additions that we have learned today. And I'm sure that God willing, as we proceed in this course of study, we will have to them to fall back on to use. Further, thank you very so much. And we look forward to also getting to hear more from you at a future date. God bless.
Thank you, sir.
thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir.
Find a time to take the session on footnoting and referencing. By hook or crook, we must do it. Except you all vote to say you don't want. I don't have any problem
We
with that.
want, sir. Yes, we
We
want.
want, sir.
Oh,
So
yeah,
we
we
have
are
to
interested.
play the part. Yeah.
Well,
Have to
as
play
an
the
aside, let me start. So when you say that it's just a matter of choice, I know nothing, nowhere is compulsory. Esther, you don't know that is even where you are compelling it the more. When you tell us that it's not compulsory, then okay, so we now want to see who will not come when you have said it's not compulsory. So if that is a tactic that you use to lure us, it is working very well.
No, not at all. If you are ever my student, particularly at postgraduate level, you know that nothing is compulsory. The only difference is that it reflects in your exam. If not your written exam in your thesis. You know, I told you the story of the student who ran away from my methods class some years ago. He was a priest. He was the chaplain to the Bishop of Ife at the time. And he came to do a master's in religious studies. And when you are doing church history, methods of historical research is compulsory subject for them. The guy showed up for 1 or 2 classes and then disappeared. I didn't see him again. I mean, I thought he has dropped the subject or maybe he's no longer in that area. Unfortunately for him, when he was to defend his thesis, I was made the internet examiner. And when I saw the thesis, I said, I thought he has left the student in university. I thought he has left the studies. I didn't know he's still a student in the university. Whoever advised him to drop out of the class did not help him at all, because it affected the quality of his write-up. And when my comments, the external examiner was begging me that is a reproach to their department, to their discipline, that a historian is correcting them on how to write their own thesis. And I abused thoroughly the supervisor, who is a professor, a colleague. We are made professor the same day. And I told him off that you failed this student. You failed this student because how could you have certified this work for examination? It showed that you never read this thesis. Sholama Binu called because this guy is going to put this thesis on the shelf. He said he presented the thesis for the University of Ife for issue. These are issues. So I'm not making anything compulsory. If you don't want to come, please, you don't have to come. It's not the only people that have problem with me not coming to class are the undergraduates, because attendance is part of the mark. So unfortunately, I don't teach undergraduates. I can't even teach. The wahala is too much. So, but please, we try to create the time to do it. It's not compulsory. You can come if you don't. If you want,
Yeah.
you feel.
We will come, sir. We'll enjoy your class. We will come, sir.
It's not my class now, it's Shina's class. If he's the one taking us, but we'll try to work out something that will be helpful for all of us. And let me also tell you, I also learned a lot from these classes. I learned a lot myself. I learned a lot. It helps me to update myself, to also interact with you. So it's a lot that we're all learning together. Thank you so much. Next week, I'm not going to be available from Wednesday. I'll go on the road till Friday. I'm speaking at a program on Thursday in Lagos. I have another appointment on Wednesday in Lagos as well. So I won't be available for next week, except in the evenings. Except in the evenings. Except in the evenings. So if I can work out a time with Shina and evenings, okay. We'll send out the notice and we'll meet. This is the last official class. The next class is a review class. If you check your syllabus, it's the review.
Yes, sir.
Lest I forget, only 3 of you submitted the archival project report. Only 3 of you. And I think I should show you so that if you think you have submitted, there you need to check where you sent it to. Just a moment, I will show you the okay. Can you see my screen?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. So for the first one, which is the research essay, ethnography and historical research, the 5 people that submitted, you have them here. And the time you submitted, I've noted it. For the second one, the 5 people are submitted. And the third one, which is the one on archival research, Adewale Stevie submitted at 9:55 p.m. on 25 April. Akedopo Emi at 8:06 p.m. 25 April. And Chifora Lugbagbe at 10:12 p.m. on 25 April. The due date was 26 April. Today is the 2nd of May. The other 2 have not submitted. That's Amao and Fatai. Not submitted. So, you know, I don't have to say anything, but you know that you have not submitted. So if you score 0 in it, it's not my fault, okay? The others, you submitted the other ones, but these are the 3 that submitted for the last one. It's only 10 marks, so it's not something big. You don't have to get the 10 marks. It's not compulsory. But you can just start grading yourself over 90 from now. So, but if you have any reason why you've not submitted, you can let me know. Because it can also help you with the process. Any comments on that? Thank you. So, see you whenever we meet again. God bless and have a blessed day.
Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Amen. Thank you, sir.
God bless
Bye-bye,
you,
sir.
sir.
Yes, sir.